Fucking g'day, mate. This is gonna be the last video in my series of 6 foundations that I use that have really helped my band kind of orient itself and make sure it's got the right tools for success. If you haven't checked out the first 2, there's a link in the description. Go check that out now.
Step 5, shared goals.
Your band needs to have the same shared goals or it's going to fail. Simple as that. It's the same as any business or any relationship. Once you find that your band is picking up trajectory, you don't want to find out that 1 or 2 of your members is going in a different direction. Worse even, you don't want to be the one fueling the train if there's someone in your band dragging their feet and slowing you down at the back, surprising you with their lackluster goals. In Gravemind, every 12 months we sit down and we discuss what we imagine the next 12 months will look like. What will that look like come best case, and what will that look like come worst case, and where will each of us be for either result? Now, I can understand this can be a really shitty conversation to have, especially if you've got that one member that just wants to play a show once a month and only if they can get time off work. If you and your other bandmates are serious about making your band a priority, change that person's mind or get them out of the band. I don't care if it's your best friend, your brother, your girlfriend, if they don't share the same shared goals, get them the fuck out. Nothing shits me more than seeing a band of 5 where 4 of the members are doing their absolute best to succeed and there's that one member that's just being dragged kicking and screaming to success. Sit down with your band and go over the hypotheticals. If X, then Y. If we get a tour offer with August Burns Red and Billy, you still don't have a job, how are you going to support yourself overseas? How are you going to come on tour with us and play your instrument? If we're going to be making an album that's going to cost us $30,000 to make from A to B, are you all happy to be putting away $200 a month so we can save for it? Things like this. Cover all bases, get on the same page, and then you can put that whole goals aspect of your band to bed. A harsh fucking reality is a lot of what being in a band is about is sacrifice. And depending on who you are, where you are in your life, what your goals are, will determine the degree of sacrifice. You need to make sure you're all willing to make the same sacrifices so it feels fair for one and so that you can be realistic with everybody else in your life. Tell your goals to everyone. Tell your partner, tell your best friends, tell your roommates, tell everyone but your workplace. Don't tell your workplace that you want to tour the world for a living because 1, that is a really hard goal to reach and they'll most likely provide you less opportunities, and 2, you more or less just want to be invisible when you're at work. If your goal for your band is world domination, then try not to rock the boat as much as possible because a lot of what being in a band is about, and I'm sure you know this, is it's really fucking expensive. My last job I worked as a banker and I fucking hated it. Love the people, hate the work. And every quarter my boss would kind of come to me and say, you know, what are your long-term career goals? Like, what do you see yourself doing in 3 years? And I would just pick the most arbitrary, hard to reach role in the whole company and then go like, oh, I want to be a lender in 3 years. And then he'd lie to me and say, yep, we'll work towards that. We can get you there. And I'd lie to him and say I work really hard. And the kind of circle of corporate bullshit continued. Also, maybe you can kind of skip out and telling your parents if they're the kind of parents that don't really like the whole unrealistic goals thing, can kind of be a bit of a hindrance on the motivation. But for everybody else, make sure they know what your aspirations are so they also know what you're going to be doing in terms of making your band a priority. If everyone in your band has the same goals in mind and you're writing great music and you're keeping an open mind to new ideas and new tactics, it's gonna make it a lot easier for you to move forward and achieve whatever goal you have for your band. But don't do any of this if you aren't.
Step 6, critical beyond belief.
Be your own harshest critic. How many times you played a set you thought was shit and someone will come up to you and go, hey, good set, bro. No one's gonna really tell you that your band sucks. Not because you're awesome, but most of the time people just don't have the energy to criticize. They just don't care enough, and why should they? It's not their responsibility, it's yours. You need to do everything you can to be as self-critical and as objective as you possibly can be about your own band. It's a natural feeling to not want to admit that you're doing something wrong or that your band sucks, because that can kind of be of a harsh reality to face. But look at it this way. Would you rather know that your band's kind of shitty after you put out a couple songs on Bandcamp and play a few shows, or would you rather find out after signing to a shitty record label, putting out an album and being under a mountain of debt? You have to be self-critical. You have to look at what you're doing and what your peers are doing to constantly refine and hone your craft. I'm not saying that you have to have everything figured out overnight, but if you consistently keep that mindset that there's always something to improve upon, you will reach your goal. Never rest on your laurels, and just be careful of how much time you spend with your dick in your hand. It's fine and it's a good thing, I think, to celebrate success, but you have to do so sparingly and you have to make sure that you're not falling into this kind of like a rock star mindset. I've seen this happen with bands where they achieve some variation of success and then they just kind of like kick their feet out and they rest on those laurels and it affects their band's progression. To use Gravemind as an example, we put ourselves through literal hell to get where we are now. But not just the normal hell of being poor and playing shows to no one, but a hell that we put on each other to be critical critical in order to make sure we were doing the right thing. Now, everyone in Gravemind's a bit abnormal, myself included, and it did take us a good while to develop a dialogue of criticism that was actually kind of healthy and not detrimental to our mental health. It's generally a much happier place to be now, especially since we've achieved so many pie-in-the-sky goals, but that only came about because we were literally down each other's throats and holding each other accountable to make sure that we were doing the right thing. When we notice something that needs improving, whatever that may be, we write it down or make a mental note and we bring it up at the next band practice. It can be very hard to give criticism properly and maintain a respectful dialogue. If you and your mates can do that naturally, then props to you, but I don't care if it sends you to the brink of a mental breakdown. If you have to go Gordon Ramsay because the past 5 shows you play, the drummers fucked up a whole section and kind of really embarrassed you on stage in front of the party that actually got you booked on those shows in the first place, then you need to sit down, you need to have that hard conversation, and you really need to get the point across. I find it easier to be an arsehole if I keep my band's shared goals front and center. If your goal is to tour the world one day and make your band your job, it can make it a lot easier to be that arsehole that you need to be to make sure you guys are still moving in the right direction. I often find keeping the shared goals in mind a really successful approach to making sure it doesn't come across as you versus them, but more or less the band's shared goals versus their shitty attitude. However you get from point A to B, you need to be able to be self-critical. You need to be able to take that long, hard look in the mirror and assess just how you're going to get your band from where it is to where you want to go. Don't give up if things are shit. Do everything you can to work out why it's shit and then go from there. In the interest of mental health and your band's longevity, I do urge you to find a way you can have this dialogue respectfully. Sit down with your bandmates and kind of even ask them how they like to receive criticism. I know that can kind of seem a bit weird, like for certain kind of like social dynamics, if you're not really the kind of band that's gonna be like, hey dude, like how are you gonna feel if I say this to you? Like how do you want me to say something negative towards you? But again, in the interest of mental health and the interest of making sure your band is a place that you want to be, find a way that you can have that dialogue easily. Find a way where you can be critical and you can be self-reflective to make sure your band has the absolute best opportunity it has at succeeding. At the end of the day, if you love your music, you are keeping your ego in check and you're constantly looking for new and better ways to present and sell your music, you've got your shared goals down pat, locked in mind, and you're always being critical of what your band is doing and where you're at, you guys will be able to achieve the goals you set for your band. I've heard a lot of people say in passing that certain bands are lucky for where they are and what positions they have, and I think that's total fucking bullshit. Luck has very little to do with the band's success, especially if you're playing a genre of music that is quite niche and nuanced. You're not going to achieve some kind of like overnight success. It's a grind, it's a constant hard process, and in this day and age, no one's gonna come to you, no label, no manager, no one, and just give you the blueprint for success. These days, you have to do absolutely everything you fucking can to make sure you're the one who's in control of your music, you're the one who's doing the best you possibly can for your band, because no one is ever gonna have your band's priority at heart more than you are. And at the end of the day, it's meant to be fun. Make sure you're not losing sight of that when you're incorporating all these different things to make sure your band can be successful. Because if you're not having fun playing in a band and living your life, then what's the fucking point?